Welcome to Module 1 of our Stress-Free Mealtimes programme. Just to set the scene, on a practical basis, we're going to be looking at the various stages to eating. And as you go through, there are little circles there, and you may feel when you download this, because this will be in the download for week 1, that you can actually just tick them off if you feel, that your child or you are able to say, yeah, they're fine. They're fine at being in the same room. When food is offered, being at the table with food, the other side of the table. We want them to get to the point where they're accepting being at the table with the food halfway across it. And they stay at the table with the food outside of their space, and they look at the food on the plate in front of them. So we just need a level of acceptance. And for some of you, it may be that a level of acceptance with a sibling or with another parent or with other folks or other family members. There's a lot of work that we need to do about just being accepting of the environment that they're in. Moving on to helping them to engage with food, preparation, utensils. You'll see this on the downloads, and the smells. We know that smells is a big issue and can be a big off-putter to people engaging with food, and we'll explore that more. And the other part of the handout is we'll be working a lot on touch and working through a process of touching, just with a finger. We're going to be exploring food that will start next week in a way that is different to this, but is complementary to this. This kind of will summarize where we will be and what we will do over the 12 weeks, but there are other strategies that we will bring into place in order so we can get this happening. So they just touch various other parts of the body to the food before we actually get onto taste. So there's quite a lot of a process that we need to go through, accepting, engaging, smelling, touching, before we'll actually even get food into the mouth, really, for taste. And we're going to be looking at that. It's lovely there. You bite off a piece first and spit it out, and then you hold it in the mouth, and that's the tiny, tiny, tiny stages that you may have been through before, or this may be new to you. But that's an overview of the stages. So looking at why children don't eat. Sensory processing issues is a biggie. And that's why we will take each week. We're going to look at about 8 weeks specifically to look at the senses, as well as other things at the same time. Maybe they've got reduced tone, decreased coordination, physical limitations for actually being able to eat or to chew or to sit still. We'll look at those. Lack of good positioning, routines, and reasonable portion sizes. So we're going to break it all down. Anxiety, fear, and confusion. And it is so normal to have neophobia. However, on the questionnaires that you've just submitted, if you're over 35, then that's a high level of neophobia. So it's a biggie that we really need to get in and reduce the fear factor for our children in order for them to even accept food near them. Never mind about engaging, moving it up that stage. So, and lastly, yes, there is for some, there'll be past trauma and negative associations. So we want to look at ways of helping the brain learn how to replace the negative experiences with positive experiences and rewire the brain, set up new neural networks to be able to help the feeding process both now and in the future. So common characteristics, limited food selection, less than 20, limited food groups, maybe just eating carbohydrates, anxiety around the new foods, tantrums, gagging, vomiting, throwing the food, food jags, insistence on the same food. And yes, it happens that they stick with the same food for a while and then they drop it. And actually the repertoire gets less and less, and we need to keep working in a nice, warm, loving way of increasing rather than decreasing those food jags. And sometimes there may be a medical diagnosis, GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disorder. There are other things that we won't tackle in this program because they do need medical intervention. And this is very much consultation and working together. And there are some things that I won't be able to get into but we just need to make sure that we can rule out some of the other physical things that are going on while we work on the things that we can deal with, that the medical team don't need to be involved with. So resistant eaters, 75% of children on the autistic spectrum, 80% of the severe learning disability, and 30 to 45 of typically developing children will have a significant resistance to eating. So the strategies, some of the strategies that we're going to look at generally, first has to be starting with reducing the stress for you and the pressure at mealtime, for them, creating suitable environments, addressing seating, table, feeding equipment, the portion sizes. Food exploration, this is what we will start with next week. We need your children to become the detectives, the explorers, the scientists when it comes to food, to be able to get them engaged with food. It's more than food play. It's an extra level to bring in, which has been really, really powerful. Daily food exposure in a controlled and organised way, promoting relaxed choice to develop their internal motivation. And we're going to set up the whole body ready for eating, because actually eating involves so much more than just what's going on in our mouths, so much more than what they can see or smell or hear. We often think that eating is just about kind of like our head area, but actually there's a lot more involved with our whole body system. So we'll take a few minutes and have a look at what the ideal meal is for us. And maybe if you have a pen and paper or something, just take just a couple of minutes to think, if you had an ideal meal, if you had the choice to go anywhere, regardless of price, you could choose absolutely everything you wanted. Where would you go? What would you do? What would the food be? What would the environment be like? Would it be dark? Would it be out in the streets like this one? The lighting, would it have bright, lots of colours? Would you be on your own with a book? Would you choose to go with a good friend? Would you go with your spouse? Would you want to be with your family? Do you want to go with a big group of friends? And what time of day do you prefer? Would you prefer going out first thing in the morning for breakfast, when it's all, fresh out there? Or do you want it to be sunny? Do you want to go down to the beach? Or is it a quiet, romantic, music playing type of meal? And we'll come back to this over time, just seeing how important everything is when it comes to meal times. And so often we take it right down to food, which obviously is a big part of it. But the ideal meal has a lot more to it than just food. So firstly, we want to be reducing stress for you. And the first myth that we have to kick to touch is that good parents are responsible for getting their child to eat. And I say, if that is what you're feeling, please let that go. It's like taking a horse to water. You cannot make a horse drink. You can take it to water, but you can't make it drink. And it's the same with our children, that we can't and we shouldn't force them to be eating, no matter how much we want them to. We are responsible for preparing and providing a balanced meal within the context of what we have at an appropriate schedule and setting, but the child is solely responsible for whether they eat and how much they eat. So if nothing else from this course, it will be to be able to take the pressure off yourself from feeling that you are the one that is responsible for feeding your child. It will help them enormously if you don't have that pressure on yourself. So there's a few don'ts that we'll cover now, and we will cover the do's in future weeks. But I think it's really important for now, if we're going to start afresh from this week until the end of the course, that there are certain things that we just don't want to be happening from now. Okay, so we don't want to be hiding any food. Blending is usually okay, but even that can change the taste of something that somebody already knows. So what I mean by don't hide any food is, to give an example, if you were going to your favorite pizza place and you like the stuffed crust, you know, that has the cheese on the inside, and if there was a food that you didn't like, I don't know, is that chorizo or a mushroom or a pea, and you're biting into your lovely stuffed crust cheesy pizza, and when you bite in, you find something unexpected in there. Maybe it is the mushroom, maybe it's a bit of sausage, maybe it's a bit of something, and there's a reaction, and you can't see what is in the next bite of your stuffed crust. So it's that sense of lack of trust. You may not actually go and order a stuffed crust pizza again because you've lost that trust factor in what something that you did particularly enjoy or not. So what we need is for our children to trust us, and we want to develop that trust. So hiding food, if it's not blended in an obvious way, and if it's not going to change the taste of something dramatically, I think it's great when we can do like a tomato soup or a soup where we have lots of vegetables in it, and it's great, and it's just a bit thicker. But what I mean is blending it so in such a way that it's going to change the taste of something that they already like or are familiar with. We want to stop any form of bribing or punishment or saying anything negative. We will be looking at words during the course, but if you could just for a start for this week, pay attention to the words that you find just coming out of your mouth, or that other siblings are saying, or that other family members are saying, because we want to try and nip in the bud or stop from here on in saying anything negative about them or about the food. We're going to take any pressure off them to eat. And I appreciate until things get better, things may actually get a little bit worse. And I hope you're prepared for that and okay with that, because we will need to change some habits that have been laid down. And sometimes to change a habit is a little bit harder. And that's why we have this amount of time, why we've got 12 modules to work through, and we can support each other through it. But we need to make that shift until we can get the child internally motivated to engage with us a little bit more. And then after the 12 weeks, we can then decide what else, how else we're going to take it forward from there. But to commit to now, while we go through these modules, that there's going to be no pressure on the children, no pressure on you, no coercing. Just go with it. And certainly don't feel guilty. You know, everybody is doing everything because of their love for their children. And don't give up hope, because things do change. Some things will change amazingly over the course, and some things won't, but you will know what to do, and you'll be on the right path to making things an awful lot better. And hopefully those stress levels will be way down because of all the other strategies that we will cover in the weeks ahead. So there'll be a little bit of homework after every module, either for you to reflect as a way for you to reduce stress. It's maybe something you need to schedule, maybe there's something that you need to do, maybe there's an activity that needs to be filled in. That, okay, yeah, this week I'm going to reflect and I feel 1, 2, and 3. You know, for this week ahead, I'm going to try not to feel the pressure to make my child to eat, or I'm going to try and do such and such. So in the download sheets, there's a course homework diary where I've put 11 modules worth of homework down, so that if you're someone who likes to keep track of what you've been doing and what you are doing, then you can just fill those in, and you'll only have 2 sheets, and that you'll be able to reflect back and see what your homework is or what you're hoping to do this week. So my request to you for this week is to get a baseline of listing tastes, textures, and the amounts eaten. Observe how they eat and what they eat with. You know, we're looking at hands. Do they overstuff their mouth? Do they need to have it separated on the plate? Observe how they are when they're not eating, because that comes to the point when we're looking at just preparing their body ready for eating. We just want to get an idea, just to be able to, for you to be able to tune in to what's going on with them before they actually come to the table, when they're not eating, because we may need to do some regulatory exercises so that they're in a much better place to come to the table. We want to observe their positioning during meals. Are they sitting and swinging? Are they sitting on their legs? Are they bouncing up and down? What are they doing positioning wise? And observing obvious triggers to negative reactions. That might be a food choice, that might be a sibling, that might be a noise in the background. Don't know what your situation is. So this week is very much the week to observe. We're just getting baselines for food, baselines for the background, see what's going on. So the environment and the routines. Maybe, again, meal times are better at school or at granny's or wherever. We just need to have an insight, just pay attention to that. I think it's also really important that we also look at bowel movements to see what's coming out the other end, and if they're constipated on a regular basis or how often they go. We should be looking at going every day or twice a day. And if our children aren't, then it would be important that we look at that and see how that affects behaviour, because that can affect behaviour really quite significantly. And the same with sleep. So we'd like to just have a record of sleep. How much sleep did they have the night before? You know, what's going on? So just getting a rough baseline. This is an example in the download sheets for this week. There's a food diary, very simple. Just, you know, what's happening on Sunday. You know, what are they eating? So we can have a look so that you can see over the course of one whole week what food they actually have consumed. It's a really nice way of reflecting back and seeing, oh, actually, okay, they were mainly eating, you know, pasta on a Sunday, but on Tuesdays, they actually were eating, you know, a fruit or something that they don't normally eat because that's what they had at school, or that's what they were having at granny's or whatever. So it would be nice to be able to reflect back over the course of a week. And here's the other download sheet for the baseline. So you can put all the other things that aren't exactly about food into that. And you can do this every single week for the next 11, 12 weeks to keep an idea, to keep a log really of what's going on, because it's so important when we can look back and see where they've come from. And each week you'll probably tune into them a bit better. And if you have these printed out and just placed, maybe you just have a little stress-free mealtime file, and you just have those on the work surface in the kitchen so that it's readily accessible to be able to fill in, you know, did they have a bowel movement today that you know of? What was their sleep? So first thing in the morning at breakfast, you can fill in some things. And then at the end of the day, just while you're preparing tea time or while you're clearing up for tea, you could just check, just have a quick scribble and write something in. So I'm hoping it won't take too much time, but it just means that you will be tuning into your children a lot more this week to feedback next week. So we'll see you in module 2.